Hey there, Alan Matthews here, and I've got a little quick video for you with a few tips on how to practice chords. Whenever we learn some new chords, be it our basic, I like to call them cowboy chords, C, G, D, E, A minor, all these type of chords that use the open positioning. I like to call them cowboy chords. It could be those, or it could be chords that come in your pieces, positions, things like that. Regardless of what they are, there are a few tips I've got for you here on ways that you can practice them so that you can just get them more into your hands. Because ideally we can change chords very quickly, very easily, very smoothly, so that we can just butt them up right next to each other and make it really smooth in our playing. So one of the things is let's just take a couple of basic chords. How about G and D? How about we're just going to start with the G chord and the D chord. I like to play the G chord with both the pinky and the third on the third fret right here. So you're playing the G and then the D on the second string. So with the G chord, here we are. Now when we're going to a D chord, we've got a bunch of fingers that move, but the first thing that we can notice is that one of the fingers stays the same, and that's the third finger. So we can use that as kind of a pivot or an anchor in there and move around it, at least mentally. So instead of lifting up everything and then putting it back down, then we can leave the third finger on there and then just move the other fingers around it. And so that's the first tip, is just look for a finger that stays on the same note or at least on the same string. Sometimes you'll find chords that it's just one finger just happens to slide somewhere instead of actually lifting and moving to a whole different string. It can slide. So first and foremost, know that if it's there. Now the second one is, if we want to practice something to play it really fast, one of the best things we can do is actually slow it down and really look at the process in slow motion time. My teacher calls it plank time. Like I forget who the guy named fellow Planck, but he basically looked at the splitting of the Big Bang and split it into little pieces that were each like a zillionth of a second long. So basically it's taking it in each little bitty millisecond, look at it as its own little thing. So really slow it down and look. So what we can look then is, we can look at each finger. So I can say, okay, well my second finger starts at the G, is way down here on the 6th string, 3rd fret, and when it goes to a D, it's coming all the way over here to the 2nd fret on the 1st string. And so this finger has this action going on. It's going from way over here on the 6th string to on the 1st string, 2nd fret. So just knowing that the second finger goes from one extreme to the other extreme, 3rd fret to 2nd fret, 6th string to 1st string, then now we can just know that. So now what we're going to do, now that we know that, is that we're going to practice changing from G to D, but the second finger is now the first finger that plays on both of them. The 3 can stay down or it can move or do whatever you want to with it. But the second finger has to be the first finger to touch down before the first finger or the pinky or anything else. So here we go. We're just going to play the second finger first and then go to the D chord, placing the second finger first. And then back to the G, leading with the second finger. And this is tricky for some people because we get used to playing in a certain order. Whenever I play this chord, I go in this order, 1, 2, 3, or whatever it is. And so what this does is changes the order that you're actually playing your fingers down. And that teaches them to move independently. And whenever you put it back into time, it'll all just go faster. It doesn't mean you have to do it this way all the time. It's just a practice technique to get everything faster. Then whenever you do go back, it'll just move where it's going faster. So then we would do it with the first finger. We would say, okay, the first finger is going from the 2nd fret on the 5th string, 2 strings over to the 2nd fret on the 3rd string, and that's its motion. So it's basically skipping a string, staying on the same fret, and that's what that has to do. And so now we change from G to D, leading with the first finger. First that, and then go that. So now you're having to put your chords down using the first finger as the first note that hits. Then you can do it with the third finger, which in this case happens to stay the same. So that's just a couple of techniques that you can do. You can do this with any chords, any combinations of chords. I do recommend that when you're learning a new chord, that you take it and just pair it up with one other chord and practice back and forth. In this case, we did G and D, back and forth. And then if you have a whole string of chords that you need to do, say there's a song that kind of just rapid fires a succession of chords, instead of practicing the whole thing, take just the first 2 chords, then the second and third chord, and then the third and fourth, and the fourth and fifth, and then put them together in little groups of 3. So really take it apart, and instead of just over and over playing chords back and forth as fast as you can, instead of just kind of beating it to death in that way, take a step back, look at the way that you're practicing, kind of analyze, maybe there's some better way I could do this, and then you're actually practicing. Practicing, remember, is solving problems. If we're not solving problems in our practice, we're not making the most of our time. And so if the problems are still there at the end of our practice, and we haven't actually gotten closer to them, to solving the problems, then we're not practicing efficiently, and we could be making better use of our time. And so just keep an eye on that in your practice and ask yourself that question: am I solving the problem? And if I'm not, then do something differently, because whatever you're doing is not working. If your problems aren't solving, then you're not doing the right thing, and you should take a step back and do something different. All right, that is chords. Practice them well, practice them slowly, and then speed them up. And I hope you have a wonderful practice. Be well.